school earlier and it made me feel old. I'm only 2 years older than you. Yeah, damn it. It's your
At
cold
middle
open.
school.
I know. That's terrible.
I finished, well, the school I graduated eighth grade. They had seventh and eighth grade in the same building. That was
Hmm.
2011. Jesus.
Damn.
Wow.
I was
I feel old now. Fuck.
I
2015.
I was in eighth grade in 2016.
I graduated
I
high
don't
school in
remember.
You
2015.
did.
I all I know is after the Seahawks lost Super Bowl 49, I went to high school. So it was like 15, 16,
Mm.
something like that. Anyway, that's your cold open. We're talking about middle schools. Welcome back to the Seattle Storm Roundtable. I didn't know how much stuff we'd have to talk about after we did an episode last week, right? But it's been somewhat eventful in good ways and bad ways, unfortunately. Um, we'll start off the show with a return. There's two returns to talk about, and one of them is an older player, and Alysha Clark. Alysha Clark is back with Seattle, um, on a 1 year deal. Richard Cohen. A lot of these numbers that we're gonna get are from Richard Cohen and her hoop stats. Great, absolutely great tool for WNBA contracts and numbers and stuff like that. One of my lights went out. That's crazy. I mean, it's a nice pickup. Like I think anybody would agree it's a nice pickup as like a bench piece, right? Um the money's a little bit interesting. Richard Cohen reports it's $185,000 unprotected, so a significant raise from what Alysha Clark was getting the last few years in Vegas. You know, obviously Alysha Clark has been a fan favorite in Seattle since signing with them in 2012. You know, got drafted by San Antonio way back in the day, didn't sign there. He earned the nickname the Eraser. That was the first thing that popped into my head when I found out about this deal. Yeah, I mean Seattle needs that help. She can provide some great spacing. Uh, you know, but it's interesting. It's an interesting deal at 37 years old. And given the contract number, in terms of the money there. Before I keep going, I would love to hear about this deal because again, I think any of us on the surface, like, oh, Alicia Clark, like great piece for your bench, right? But depending on some roster stuff that we'll talk about, it maybe it's not a bench. I don't um Rowan, I'll go with you because I know you saw Alicia here as the storm walls behind you, we'll say. And then Christian, I want your take on it as well, after we hear from Rowan.
Yeah, she's definitely back there somewhere. I don't know which one she is. Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked last week, I feel like this is always the perspective for some reason that comes to my mind first, but just from a fan base perspective, I think that this was an easy win for the Storm organization. Just I think that, obviously I've seen a lot of people, us included, talking about how Seattle really missed out on some of those big name free agents who are now, have now been signed with other teams. And so I think they were really looking for a win in the, free agency space, and to bring someone back who has been like you said, fan favorite for a very long time. And when we've talked about in the past 3 years losing Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, and Jewel Lloyd. I think honestly, some of that money that they have is basically paying her a bit to kind of help boost the fan base and bring some excitement back. And we've seen that even with Gabby Williams when when she came back mid-season, people got really excited, and I think that's something that you do have to think about is how is your fan turnout going to be, and especially when you've just lost the person who is the who was the face of the team for the past 2 years. So with that, I mean, I think we see that the roster is super limited at the moment, and you're right that there could be, she definitely has that ability if there is the need for her to start, whether it be, God forbid, any injuries in the future or just trying out different lineups. She's been in that role before, if I remember correctly. In Seattle, there were a few years there where she was starting, and so she has that veteran presence that I always say, the Seattle really loves to have. So I think overall it's a good get, but I think money wise, I agree. I think that they could have used that a bit differently, and I think that they were just looking for a win, and it seemed like kind of had to convince her a little bit more than maybe they would have wanted to with that extra money. So with a really limited roster, interested to see if that kind of ends up biting them later with, trying to sign some people. Like the roster, what did we say? 6 people right now. So making sure that you have money to sign some other people is really important moving forward.
Yeah, calling a spade, Seattle's had a pretty hard time this offseason signing players and giving Alysha Clark at 37 years old, $185,000 for one season. It's kind of a lot on the heftier side. If I'm not mistaken, I think she was making the vet minimum last year with Vegas, so that's a substantial pay rise. Like Rowan said, that definitely comes from continuity with the fan base, with the team. Spending a majority of her career here, the times that she spent, but also, this just shows that Seattle's having a hard time signing people. There have been meetings that haven't went the way they probably would have wanted. There's been players that have been rumored to be coming to Seattle that would fit the mold that really haven't either taken meetings with Seattle or hasn't even really kind of blossomed fruition. Now, I don't think this is going to last. I mean, this is a talented team, really nice fan base, a great city, great facilities. Just opened last year, the Storm Center for Basketball Performance. You would think these would be draws for really anyone in the league, whether it be young or kind of on the elder side. That's probably possibly on their way out of the league that kind of haven't had these things their entire career. But so far to date, we haven't really seen anything that's been, I guess, unexpected. But there was always a possibility that Gabby Williams returned. It was almost a surefire guarantee that Nneka Ogwumike was going to return. Alysha Clark coming back, a fan favorite, like Rowan said again. But did it surprise us in a good way? I mean, not necessarily, considering the Storm need more help, especially on that bench. Like, you can look at the starting lineup right now. Skylar, you got Gabby, you got Nneka, you got Ezzy. That's a great four, but that's pretty top heavy considering you don't have the bench to go with it right now. Like, there's kind of the same thing that everyone said about Vegas over the last couple of years. But honestly, I think this might be one of the better benches that Vegas has had. You think about it, they've got Cheyenne Parker Tyus. Then they just signed, I can't remember who they just signed the other day. Tiffany Mitchell, we were just talking about. Those two additions in general, if you look at the Aces roster for the last couple of years, those are by far two of the most talented players they've probably ever had coming off that reserve unit. In order to win a championship, and that's what the Storm want to be in 2025, you have to have players of that ilk. And right now, they kind of don't have that.
Yeah, I mean that's just the reality of the situation. And I mean, uh, obviously the injuries, and one of them we'll talk about later in the show. Obviously, for as much chatter that there was about Nika Mule and her role last year, and she would have ideally played more of a factor this season, and now you don't get that with the injury she suffered playing. I think it was her first game. I went and reread Christian's story from that when we posted about it. Um,
The
about that.
pain, the
It's
pain.
first game.
First game, she was killing with Besiktas.
I
Uh,
also will say though that with Nika, like we talked about this last season, not knowing what would happen, but last season, I remember the three of us had conversations like, okay, there are some games where she should probably be getting in because who
yeah,
knows what next season is going to look like,
yeah.
and it would be nice for her to have some experience. Well, that's what we're looking at now, and it's just interesting.
Well, and then um, talking about the bench before we move over to speaking about Gabby Williams. Um, Rowan and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I was looking at rosters because I was thinking about it. I was like, because of you know Seattle, as Christian mentioned, the inability to bring in free agents, whether that is a big name starter or a bench player to fill out your reserves. I was like, is Seattle going to have two rookies on their roster for the second time over the last half decade or so? Because if you think about it, I go back to like when CSS started getting credentialed with the Storm. So it was last year. They didn't have any rookies. I think that was 2023. I mean, the last few years have been rough outside of Jordan Horston obviously has been the I think the crown jewel of the last what since COVID, really, right? Nika's hurt, and so it's very limited sample size. You can't judge a player off that. And then since it's kind of been a lot of hit and miss and players that are now overseas, I think there's one player that's Lorella Kubaj. I think we talked about last yesterday wrote with Atlanta. So I didn't even
We had a
realize
lot
that.
of fun looking through the 2020, was that 2021?
I
Yeah,
think I went all the way,
2021
yeah,
draft, and we were
2021,
going through each person.
and I
Like,
was
Man, y'all
like,
were in the weeds yesterday.
we really
Jesus.
were.
yes. I was looking at Alyssa Cunane. I think Rowan said Alyssa Cunane just signed with
Yep.
Golden State. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, I didn't know that. Like we looked at Arena Perez, I think was a training camp contract, not drafted, because I
Mhm.
looked at that. Like I love Dulcie Fankam because of her rebounding ability and because she was a fun story.
Mhm.
She gets cut. So like, I don't know. I think like with the 4 picks this year they have, we might see 2 rookies on this. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. We'll get to there when the draft comes. We'll talk. Oh, before I talk about Gabby, we did get contract numbers on NECA because Christian mentioned NECA, right? 1 year deal, 195,000. So put into perspective, I just said Alysha Clark, 185,000. NECA Aguma can't. Okay, just so you know that. Um, Again, this is all Richard Cohen on Twitter. I believe Richard's on Blue Sky as well, but her hoop stats again, great tool to use. It's about 20,000 below regular max, so slight discount to help fill out this roster. Um,
Can I add in something real quick?
yeah,
Okay, so there were a lot of Storm fans last season that were very adamant, very upset that Jade Melbourne got cut.
mm,
Basically, wasn't traded. They didn't even really get anything for her return. Those fans were right. Hate to say it, because a lot of them were kind of very, when I say very upset, there were, there's some expletives used occasionally,
yes,
sparingly. I understand the anger now, especially considering the team needs a point guard, especially behind Skylar. Um, the guard rotation right now is pretty thin. Um, and you would assume that going into the draft that Olivia Mouse is going to be the replacement to Jewel as far as the position, not exactly the production. But are we really going to count on a rookie to kind of hold the starting spot down and be that productive?
mhm.
It could happen. I'm not gonna say it's not, but yeah, Jay Melbourne would definitely help right now.
And she showed
Yeah,
out when, I mean, her first game back when she was with the Mystics, when she came to
yeah,
play in Seattle, it was like, oh, okay, so this is what happens when you use her in this way, and yeah, agreed, agreed.
yeah. It's I didn't even think about that. That's a great callback. Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I loved watching Jade, and I was an advocate. Just right, that is a great callback. God, I think I saw her in those drafts too, and I was like, who the hell did they draft in oh, um, yeah, that's that. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, it's been a long off season, y'all. I'm tired. Um, yeah, well, I mean, another positive as I try to keep us going here, is Gabby Williams is officially coming back. I know that it was kind of. I'll say this right? Because last episode we talked about the potential of Gabby returning amongst a few other things. And there was doubt. I think it was never a surefire thing that Gabby Williams was going to return like throughout the offseason. It wasn't okay, she's coming back for sure. Let's plan otherwise. Like the core was interesting for a lot of reasons. Alexa with ESPN, Alexa Philippou reporting said that with the core, Seattle was ready to respect Gabby's wishes if she wanted to move on, right? And so again, from what this group knows, it was never a surefire thing that Gabby was coming back. It wasn't, you know, I don't think there was a surefire either way. It seemed unlikely, and that's why we kind of talked like we did last week, right? But this is a boost, obviously, a boost in terms of Seattle bringing in this talent to have on the 2025 roster. But for Gabby in terms of pay as well, because with Richard again, $225,000 1 year deal for Gabby Williams. It's about 10,000 more than the regular max. It makes her the most highest paid Storm player, but a little over $25,000 below the super max she could have taken by signing the core qualifying offer. So um, again, this has been so fascinating. Christian, I'd love to hear from you about, bringing Gabby back because I know we kind of went through, you know, talking about it last week, but just your thoughts on this and where it leaves Seattle's roster, which kind of no, not Seattle's roster. Sorry, we got to talk about Jordan. Just yeah, the Gabby move, and then Rowan. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I mean, Gabby Williams is one of the best hoopers in the world. I mean, we've seen that time after time after time, especially at the Olympics last year. And then she came, wow, that was really last year already. And then she came to Seattle and was basically one of the main lifelines in the second half. Despite going 8-7 after a 17-8 start before the Olympic break, she was there, when they needed her the most. And she's going to be living up that same role, if not even more, now that Jordan Horston will be out for the 2025 season due to a ACL injury. Um, I do think that what Gabby provides is exactly what the Storm needs. I'm just wondering, will she have the supporting cast, at least in the forward group, to kind of take that pressure off, so to speak, because she can't play, all 40 minutes. That's why we go back to the bench. That kind of group itself. Really interested to see who they bring in to kind of help round out behind her. But as far as Gabby herself, I mean, she's a surefire talent. I can't wait to see her hoop again, especially with more minutes, a little bit more consistency. The sky is the limit in 2025. I guess my concern, I understood that she took about 25K less than the Supermax, which she was entitled to as a core player. I think that was done. This isn't any inside information, of course, but I think that was done in order to help give Seattle a little bit more flexibility when signing additional free agents. I'm just wondering down the line, let's say there are injuries or there is a certain player that you want to go acquire. You're going to be cash strapped, because you gave Alysha Clark 185. Gabby is not the highest paid Storm player at 225. NECA has 195. I'm not saying that none of this is, earned or anything, because it is. I'm just saying, as far as a pure financial standpoint, the Storm aren't really doing themselves any favor before the season starts, especially considering you still have to sign about another 4 or 5 players. Like, the money's going to have to get divvied up some way. And I mean, we will see a couple of vet minimums this season. I will say that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you make a good point. Last week when we were talking, with Alexa's reporting, it does kind of confirm what we were talking about, that there could have been, that she did make clear at the end of the season that she wasn't sure if, that she didn't want to be cored. And so it does sound like those conversations were had behind the scenes. And I think last week we were talking about that, we didn't know what those conversations were. She hadn't made it clear if she wanted to stay, wanted to leave. And yeah, I also am, thrilled to see her coming back. I think that she has been the difference maker. And, I think that the core designation for her and the price that she is, while I do agree with Christian, I think the money is a big issue right now, but I'm happy to see her getting what she deserves in that. I think when she first, came to Seattle back in 2022, I believe, wasn't a lot of hype around her, and she's really proved herself here. And I think, again, become another fan favorite. I think she's just been so great in every area in the box score for Seattle, and defensively especially. I just saw someone repost that one clip of her, that one that they put in slow motion jumping up. Yep, you know which one I'm talking about. Just things like that that just, again, made the difference for the Storm. And I think that it is interesting looking at the money. You think about these teams that have been in championship contention. Let's just say the past 3 years. These, the super teams of, Vegas and New York, just to name two. I mean, all of their players took significant pay cuts to be able to assemble a roster of that caliber. And of course, with any team, a championship is the goal. But at this point, like you were mentioning, Christian, I mean, Vegas has a stacked bench already. And where, what we're looking at right now is, no bench. And like, I'm sorry, I can't put it any other way. And it's like, I think that unfortunately in this league, where of course they get paid a lot less than, in the male equivalent of this league, it's frustrating to, have to take a pay cut to be able to assemble a team, that is in championship contention. But I think that, we're looking, according to her hoop stats, they have $356,000 more of cap room. And if you want to sign a really strong, bench play, free agent that comes off the bench, like Tiffany Mitchell, like a Cheyenne Parker Tyus, I mean, you're really running low on money there. And I don't know. I think that it might be another year where some rookies make the roster because you have, free agents that you might spend some money on, but then you need more bodies, and those bodies are probably going to have to be people on rookie contracts. So anyway, really happy to see Gabby back. Glad that she was able, that the Storm gave her the option to make the decision to stay or go. And that it seemed like that, they were working well together. And excited for that, but interested to see who the supporting cast is going to be. That's really my main focus at the moment.
When you said no bench, were you thinking of that green guy from Despicable Me? Is that Despicable Me?
What is that?
It's like a meme of like a green guy. He's like a big head.
Oh,
He's like
no,
pouting, and it's like no something. You can like put a word at the end of it. It's
interesting. No,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not
that's
what I thought, but
What
I was
movie is
thinking
that?
of Megamind. And it's is normally the meme is no, and
I'm
then
gonna
it's the
look that
B
up.
word.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
And
Yeah,
that's what I was
Okay,
like, no
okay.
bench.
Yeah,
That's
that
what I
was
was
not on
thinking.
purpose, but I'll
yeah.
pretend it was. I'll pretend.
Despicable Me. What the hell is wrong with me? Despicable Me.
They're all cartoons at this point. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the like you make that point, and it's funny to keep talking about Vegas's bench, right? Because specifically after going back to Alysha Clark, specifically after the Alysha Clark signing, Vegas fans were kind of in our mentions like, can we talk about the Vegas Exodus and they have no bench? And then now I'm like, God damn,
I mean,
like
that is
they
interesting to think about though. Like, yes, those I'm gonna call them super teams. I know that this is a controversial word, but these super teams, these bench players took a pay cut, but it is interesting to see that in the long run, sometimes that's not worth it because you see Sydney Colson, who has nothing but good things to say about Vegas, but then she goes to Indiana because she gets more money. Like those things are important in the long run. And so, it's a trade-off.
oh for sure. And I mean, it's always interesting to see how some of these GMs are able to retool, right? Like Vegas could if Vegas didn't have, the executive they did, what position would they be in? You know, Christian, did you want to add to some Rowan said or
Yeah, as far as the money part, there are certain vets that left their teams like Tip Hayes. She was gonna make maybe under 100,000, I think. It wasn't the vet minimum, but she's gonna be making under 100K. And she went to, Golden State, and they were offering her $200,000. That's a max deal, pretty much, And at this stage of her career, she's already retired once. And she retired twice, I thought it was just once. So get that payday
I
while
think it
you
was
can. Yeah, it was just once. Like get that payday while you can. But at the same time, if this is what's going to take to bring in high caliber reserve players, again, like as far as the money situation, there isn't that much of it to go around, and that's kind of the unfortunate part. But if there's anyone that I think that can get it done, I think Talisa can get it done. The Storm GM. Maybe we could bring Dulcie back. I wasn't really happy that she got cut. Considering I feel like she was a really good big. I mean, Joyner Holmes, she's still out there if she would like
She's
prefer to
with
come
Dallas.
back. Oh wait, she did sign with Dallas. Forgot about that.
I
Wow. I
don't know.
mean,
I can't keep track at this point. I just
it's getting
I
sparse
mean,
out there though.
it makes sense. She's from Dallas, so I mean, perfect
and
place for
she
your
has that
hometown team.
relationship with Kurt Miller too.
Yep, I forgot
Oh
about that.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
we poor out here, man.
Well, this last sort of player we'll talk about before we look at the roster and when you guys look at this, both of you can kind of take your thoughts from Jordan and then look at the roster here because it's unfortunate. Like before anything else, this is tough, right? I know a player that all three of us really love covering, right? In Jordan Horston, um, in the Athletes Unlimited, I think it was February 7th in one of those games. I think that league had just kicked off. Like we're only a few days into that league. Not in Nashville, Tennessee, which, to have that around, where Jordan essentially grew up, like, this is pretty cool. Anyway, um, it was an ACL tear. Try not to get messy. Uh, this reporting came out, either way, it was officially confirmed today by the team Monday, February 11th. Either way, it's tough. No matter what, no matter what other extracurriculars that are going through my head about it, it's tough, right? Just because of the human being that Jordan Horston is. Like, again, there's no one on that team that's like as high energy, that's you know kind of as honest, really, sometimes. And she's just been a lot of fun to cover, whether it was her rookie season and how she played through that shoulder injury, and then she spent the offseason in Seattle rehabbing it, training with Jewel. How Jewel was her accountability partner, right? So I know the trade couldn't have been easy either. And then someone who's, certainly really excited to get back into things and get going back into basketball, um, with Athletes Unlimited, and then you suffer an injury that should keep you out effectively for the season. Um, yeah, that's really tough, man. You know, and just again, I talked about the human side of it, the player as well. Like, to see the jump that she took from year one to year two, the versatility, the confidence that she was growing on offense, her ability to guard, essentially every position. Um, it's just really tough. So, from that, I'd love to hear from Christian, go to Rowan, and then you can talk about the roster. I know we've talked about it a little bit already, but in my little terrible handwritten notes here, you know, you got the starting five essentially set out. You've got Lee Rue, who signed, I believe it, per was this per across the timeline, it's a training camp contract, which I did not realize for a little bit. You've got Leroux on a training camp contract, um, and then Alysha on the bench, and then it's kind of crickets. So, and then on the injured side of things, you've got Nika and Jordan over here, and I think Jordan posted about on her Instagram story that those two are going to go through some rehab together and get through this, together, which is nice, right? It's always nice to have a buddy, especially with recovery like that. It can be pretty lonely just reading about how some athletes have dealt with it. So, Christian, I'd love to hear from you on Jordan here, and just how tough this is, as well as roster wise where the Storm are. Again, I know we've talked about it a little bit already. And then Rowan, we can go to you after that.
Yes. So Jordan, Horston, they want a four, but I'm a big guard. That's kind of been her mantra since she got to the W. Unfortunately, this is kind of her first major. I mean, she had, of course, the ankle issue before, but tearing your ACL, that's a pretty significant injury. Um, it sucks because you know we're not supposed to have favorites as reporters, but when it comes down to the human element of reporting and speaking to these players, there isn't anyone else that carries himself more professionally and respects others more than Jordan Horston. So it kind of hurts to see her go down like that, especially considering it was a no contact injury. But also, from my understanding, from what I know, um, she wanted the ability to report that, to break the news herself. It just kind of sucks that opportunity was taken away from her in the manner that it was. But as far as moving forward, you know, it's rehab, prehab, and as far as Jordan and the Storm, the Storm are going to be there the entire way, support. From what I understand, she will be back in Seattle for a significant part of the season. So that's where she will be doing rehab and things of that nature, of course, with strength and conditioning coaches um, that she is accustomed to, like Tanisha and other employees that work for the Storm at the CBP. But yeah, it's a tough blow. It's a tough blow, especially considering she was doing so well. Arguably, a superstar overseas and with New Zealand with the Tucumana Queens. I think that was from October to like kind of mid December, you know, and then there was AU right around the corner, and it being in Nashville, no, not that far from Knoxville, where she spent a good majority of her upbringing as far as in college years. You know, it's tough, especially with everyone there. I understand that Noe was there, Ebony Hoffman was there as well. Pretty much, a good portion of the Seattle Storm electorate was there. And, that support meant a lot to her. People being there around her, the support, and just to, like I said, just be there for her. It's you know, such a sad time. But at the same time, if anyone knows Jordan, like they think they do, she's not crying about this. She's not moping about it. She wants to get to the gym. She wants to start the prehab and the rehab and everything. And now, I do think that her mom will have to be there to kind of hey, you have to rest, you have to relax. You can't. Rome wasn't built in a day. But again, if you know Jordan, she's gonna try to get on the basketball court as soon as possible. But yeah, prayers up with the entire Horston family, and good thoughts and prayers going into the journey ahead.
Yeah, I mean, echoing what both of you said, it's really heartbreaking just from a off the court standpoint. I think on the court and off the court, it's been really great seeing Jordan blossom, in Seattle. And I think I remember her rookie year, there were just so many conversations about, how high of a ceiling she had, or no ceiling really. And, but that it was kind of her confidence that was getting in the way. And it was just kind of being in a new league and last season in the what we saw from her, it was like that confidence was starting to be unlocked. And then she goes overseas, like you said, she did an amazing job starting at AU. I mean, I know that AU has been great for a lot of players just in getting those reps against a lot of players that they play against in the W. And so when I saw that both of those things were on her schedule, both playing overseas and playing AU, I was really excited about it because I was like, that's the confidence part, the reps that she needs to kind of, get to the higher level that we saw that she could get to last year. And so, um, yeah, just really, really unfortunate and, really unfortunate that it had to come, like you said, after the Jewel trade and just the way that everything went down. And so, I'm, thinking of her and glad that if she, if it had to be now that, she does have a rehab partner and everyone at the everyone in the organization, it sounds like has been really great and helpful for her. So it's a really big blow. If she's not able to be there all season, since if she's sitting out, we don't know if she's going to be in Seattle all season, but that bench support too, she's just, she just seems like a player that all of the, other players really love and enjoy having around. And so, um, just a really unfortunate situation all around. And just roster wise, I mean, she was really unlocking her potential there. And, I could see her, really being, like we saw last season, just a really great compliment to Gabby when, having someone like that coming off the bench, behind Gabby, or even, before Gabby came last season, we saw Jordan doing a really great job in that starting role. And I think she can do both, and especially in a season like this when you're having issues with trying to figure out the bench situation. It's just really, really sad to see. And yeah, that's all I can say. It's just a really unfortunate situation. And yeah, thinking of her and her whole family during this time.
Yeah, like Christian was saying, not supposed to have favorites, but just there are players who maybe are a little more fun to cover, whether it's just their personality or how they treat media, right? Like, I don't know. It was just a lot of fun. And especially because how old we're not that far apart in age. Yeah.
Yeah, me,
So
I
I
was
don't
gonna
know.
say the same thing. It was,
I was like, wait a minute.
yeah.
I was like, hold on. How old is she again? You get so used to this.
Yeah,
No,
she
we're the
was.
same age. Oh my God. Ugh. So yeah, I don't know. Just the joy that she brings and Rowan, you bring up, if she'll be around the facility, like I'm sure there will be times, but just like I can just imagine her like talking trash to her teammates, during shoot around or something already. Like I can see it. She'll be in a boot or whatever, like I can see it right now. And I can hear her voice. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, that's tough. Did you have some? Sorry, I started yapping. Rowan.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna say, yeah, I, just on a personal note, I have really appreciated Jordan just, I think she was a rookie my second year covering the team, and it's just really fun to have some players that are new to the league with reporters that are also, new to covering the sport. And I just appreciate her, and the conversations that the limited conversations that we have. And yeah, just a really great human. And yeah.
When I spoke to Jordan during the exit interviews, I basically asked her, you've kind of come out of your shell on and off the court this year, whether it be your YouTube series where you kind of explained how you went through that and how you dealt with being a professional and dealing with everything else that comes with that. She basically said it's over for everybody next season. It just kind of sucks. It's unfortunate that that won't happen during this year. But then again, if there is one bright side to this, there is never a good thing about getting injured, right? But as far as looking at it positively, a lot of athletes these days, they don't really get a true rest, when it comes to playing sports. They play from AAU, they play travel ball, whether they're not doing AAU or like off seasons or something like that. They play high school, they play prep ball, they play college, whether depending on what sport you play, you may go all 4 years, you may go 3 years, you go pro, and you're never giving that body a chance to actually just relax. I hate that it had to happen like this, but I do think that there will be a lot of growing done on and off the court because it wasn't the time for it. There wasn't a time to get those experiences when you're always, jumping from bus to bus and gym to gym and trainings and games and workouts and stuff. But now focusing on the rehab, focusing on Jordan, and I hope that she just makes the best out of this opportunity, continues to grow.
That is a good point because yeah, it's always kind of startling with, especially with the NBA WNBA draft. Sorry, I almost mentioned the MNBA. Like you go from playing, I usually March Madness, right? And then get drafted, and then you're in camp, and then you just go, and then depending on what options that which are now a lot, with AU and Unrivaled, like so much you can do, and these athletes want to get to the top of their game. It's competitive, all that. There's other benefits. Like Christian said, it's a great point to bring up because it's again and again and again. There's just so much going, and I know Jordan probably enjoys part of that, but it is definitely good to be able to kind of slow it down, and take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. I know she's all gas no brakes a lot, but this, yeah, I know she probably doesn't want that, but it should be nice. That is a great point to bring up there. That brings us, and this was something that we were going to talk about either way. Like I think when we knew about Alysha and potentially Gabby, like I started to write my notes up for this anyway. As we talked about, it's kind of sparse out there with the remaining free agents. It's interesting, like I said, and we probably maybe not. I don't know if I want to say probably, but we might see a couple not free agents, rookies on the Storm roster here for 2025. I'll have to look back to when it might be 2023 when that happened with Jordan and Dulcie, to be the last time they had like multiple rookies on the roster to start the season. Um, it's been a while, and it hasn't happened that often over the last, string of seasons since, 2020, especially. Um, but I wanted to ask both of these folks what their thoughts would be on players to, fill out this bench, right? Because as we've all talked about, they need the help. No bench. You can insert the meme here if you want. Well, I edit these. I don't know why I said if you want. But one player that's recent that could be an interesting reunion is Katie Lou Samuelson. There was the whole divorce agreement with her in Indiana about, essentially terminating her contract, is how I understand it, right? She's a player that was here in Seattle for a few seasons. Um, there are a few former Storm players out there, but I imagine if they were going to come back, it would have happened already, right? Um, there are some interesting names out here. One that I have kind of looked at the last few years, even though she's been with Chicago, is Isabel Harrison. I don't know how realistic that is, but you know, a man can hope. But then yeah, it's an interesting group of names that are left. I've done Christian. I think I did Christian the last two times first, so I have to be fair here. I have to go Rowan. What players do you want Seattle to look at, kick the tires on, pick up the phone for? It's up to the other player to also answer the phone, right? As we've kind of alluded to here. Um, but Seattle's got to fill out this bench,
Hmm.
right?
For
And
sure.
like I don't imagine you'll do it with like what the 5 or 6 spots that you have to do with all rookies.
Hmm.
So yeah, and so uh, go with Rowan here and then Christian to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean the first thing, going back to what we were talking about last week, I think with the events that have transpired, I think you have to give Mackenzie Holmes a shot now. And we talked about it last week, and I think we all said the same last week, but now even more so. I mean, especially when it's a rookie contract, bring her on for a training camp contract and see how it goes. I mean, you have nothing to lose there. I think with Katie Lou Samuelson, she definitely, when I saw that she was leaving Indiana, that definitely piqued my interest a little bit. Actually kind of funny to look back. She was traded to get Gabby Williams, so that would be kind of funny. And they were also teammates at UConn. So again, I mentioned last week, the Storm liking that, kind of the people that are familiar with the franchise, one, and also those connections, and just having that chemistry right off the bat. So that definitely could be something. She obviously was paid more in Indiana than I think a lot of people felt that she was worth at that point. And I think that if she did sign with the Storm, I think that the price would be a little bit lower. But so if she was willing to take that, and if that was better than, other offers that she got. That's one thing. I think that someone that I've been interested in a little bit, but this kind of has to, goes a little bit with the draft and everything. But Erica Wheeler is someone who really fits what feel like I've seen Seattle be interested in free agents just to the past few years. You had Yvonne Turner as a kind of, veteran backup point guard. Obviously, if we're looking at Olivia Miles, that kind of fills that space. And Erica Wheeler is definitely someone that, still makes a really big impact. She's not just kind of there as a vet just to be there. She really does make things happen on the court. So that's someone. I don't know if that's, really, but Isabel Harrison, I also have been really interested in, but not sure, I don't know. Chicago is kind of, we don't know what's going on there. The only other person that I have on here that I'm interested in is Crystal Dangerfield. Depending, and this is just, again, with the draft, we don't know what's going on, what they're going to go for. If they go for Olivia Miles and you have that guard presence, maybe not, but I think she's been great. So I don't know. I haven't looked too into many of the free agents as much as I would have liked to, because I feel like they all get snatched up. But I do like what you were saying earlier about bringing back Dulcie, because we saw that with Kiana Williams, where again they really like the people who know the system, and Dulcie was on the roster long enough last year that she's there. She would still be eligible for a rookie contract. I believe. Yep, I believe. So I think that could be, again, just thinking about what the Storm's identity is when it comes to picking people. Yeah, I feel like I could have been a bit more prepared on this one, but it's just so
I
up in
like
the
the
air right
options are
now.
out there.
Yeah. So anyway, Mackenzie Holmes, gotta go for it. Katie Lou Samuelson, if she'll take a little pay cut, I think there's no harm in it. And yeah, that's kind of what I got right now. So interested to hear what Christian has.
Honestly, you know, I feel like Rowan was spying on my sheet because I had Izzy Harrison on there as well. Um, I feel like Grace Berger would have been a perfect addition for the Storm. Unfortunately, I believe the Minnesota Lynx picked her up off of waivers. That sucks because I feel like she would have fit really well in this system. Also, she's pretty athletic, a really great defender. Just needed more minutes to kind of get on the court and prove what she can do. I also think that Crystal Dangerfield is a great vet to bring in, play behind Skylar, and even if you want to play starter level minutes when you need her to, because she's done that in Dallas. She's shown her worth. I wasn't a very big fan. I was on the wing. I feel like Rowan was spying on my sheet because I had I had a couple players that she had. Oh, I feel like Rowan was spying on my sheet because I had a couple players that she had there as well. I had Crystal Dangerfield. I feel like she's a very good vet player. I wasn't really a fan of the way that the Dallas Wings was kind of deploying her in a kind of a 1-2 set with Odyssey Sims. I feel like both of those players are starting level guards in this league. They just kind of weren't getting the amount of time I feel like both kind of deserve. But bring her to Seattle where there's kind of a clear cut spot for her. Like again, the backup point guard playing starting level minutes. She's also played off ball as a two guard. She can do both. She's a pretty good shooter, especially in the mid range. I feel like that should be a really good pickup. I'm kind of upset that Grace Berger is not in Seattle because I feel like she would have been a perfect fit. We've been talking about it for like the last two. We've been talking about it for the past 2 weeks. As far as defense, I feel like Grace Berger is one of the better young guards in the league as on that side of the floor. She just hasn't had a chance to consistently prove it. I mean, even in the last year, Indiana's been stacked for the time that she's been there. So I understand. But Minnesota is going to love her. Also, Izzy Harrison, of course, they need forward help. They kind of have a big, so to speak, and Lee Euro at 6'7". She can play that backup Ezzy role, play starting level minutes if needs to, next to NECA. But also, Olivia Opupa, I believe that was her last name, from the Minnesota Lynx last year. Great player, great energy, especially on defense, can run the offense.
You're gonna have your work cut out for you editing this one.
It happens.
She can run the floor. She's a really great passer. I feel like these things are intangibles that the Storm need, especially in the backup point guard. So yeah, that's my three. Olivia Pupa, Isabel Harrison. I can't put Grace Berger there anymore because she's gone. But Crystal Dangerfield, yeah, that's exactly what the Storm need.
Yeah, no, I mean that all makes sense, and I do remember hearing about Olivia throughout the season, like just peeking at what the other W teams are doing, and just reading about how people love the energy that she brought. So yeah, that is a great point as well. Um, yeah, Izzy Harrison, someone that I think I actually read something about that Christian said during the season last year about how Seattle could use someone like this. And then yeah, Grace Berger. I mean, I'm just confused because she was placed on waivers, if I'm correct. Um, and Minnesota, who like should be a little bit lower in the waiver wire, got her. So I'm like, are you telling me that no one else wanted to take like unless there's always the things that maybe we don't know, like whatever the hell happened in the MNBA with the Mark Williams trade in Charlotte and how that got rescinded. Maybe there's some with Grace Berger that we don't know about. And there are other players I'm sure that maybe Seattle could give out training camp contracts to and just kind of give them the opportunity, right? So
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
we
I
know
mean,
that oh, sorry. Last thing is we know that, Noelle and Ebony were down at AU. So those are, some players we know. Isabel Harrison's at AU. So there's a lot of talent there that hopefully will be tapped into. And again, with training camp contracts, you just see what happens.
yeah, I mean, I think we're just kind of at that point, right? Like it's just how it is. Um, I don't know. Again, like I just kind of sigh at this off season, right? But the next year, who knows what's gonna happen in 2026. So do a last call. If there's anything I missed, we went over Alysha. We'll go AC. I don't like weird. It feels weird saying Alysha. I'm just used to saying AC. AC, Gabby, Jordan, the roster, and then kind of players free agency to look at. Is there anything else I missed or that anything wants to bring up before we get out of here?
I don't think we missed anything, but I do think it's important to note out that with Seattle's cap situation,
Mhm.
training camp contracts aren't officially on the books until training camp comes. So I do think that will help a lot when it comes to actually giving players because there's no guarantee that the players they do bring in on training camp contract actually make it. So that will definitely help as far as fluctuating and making sure the money is enough.
Yeah, yeah, that's why like I brought up Leroux earlier. I was like, wait a minute, no contract. And then I was like, oh. Contract. Got it. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, thankfully, these decisions are up to people who make more money than us. So, Talisa and Pokey, we'll work to figure that out, and we still got the draft to look at eventually as well. So, I don't know. We'll see if we've got anything to talk to you guys about next week. Again, I didn't really know if we'd have that much to look into, but we did. So it's like, oh, we need to get this together, and we'll talk. So, yeah, until we see you next time. Well, before that, again, all of us are wishing the best to Jordan Horston in her recovery, whether that be obviously physically, but mentally. I know long recoveries can really weigh on the brain heavy. So, obviously, thoughts to Jordan Horston and her family. It's nice. It's been really nice to see whether it's the Lady Vol family or the Storm fan base, show that support online. Um, so yeah, wanted to make sure I said that one more time. And until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, were you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports. So I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.